This is a full-on involved fire that's going on right now in New England.
How many
Patriot
alarms
Nation.
do you think?
I think every last one that there is. From what just hearing you talk on the Mercedes-Benz fans phone line from NBC Sports Boston is our friend Tom Curran. How you doing, Tom?
Fully involved fire. Is this the one where the firemen just step back and stand on the sidewalk and watch?
That's it. What else are you going to do?
There we go, guys. The full conflagration.
Fully
Everybody
involved.
back.
Fully involved. That's the way it looks from outside. What can you tell me? What do you got for me?
Well, it's so hard to fathom because we have such deference for a guy who is the greatest head coach in NFL history by so many measures, certainly Super Bowl era history, maybe in American professional sports. And to post-McDaniels decide that you're going to pivot the offense to something that might not definitely fit the personnel you have. You're going to pivot the offense with a second-year quarterback who had been a Pro Bowler. And in the course of pivoting the offense, you're going to have individuals at the forefront of it who really haven't coached a lot of offense. So it's hard. If any other coach at any other time in any other sport had this combination of decisions, we would say, is he trying to fail? But with Bill, you say, well, I mean, he's done some wacky stuff in the past, and virtually every time it works out okay. So there's still a lot of latitude that I think we all give to Bill, where you just, you don't want to walk the plank and say they're screwed, but it doesn't look good, my friend.
It doesn't. So this past weekend, what did we glean? Anything more? Because
Sure.
you hear reports that they had their worst practices ever in Las Vegas, and so what happened there definitely didn't stay there. What do you got for me on that?
Sure.
Tom.
Let me give you the timeline. They were out there last week in Vegas. Tuesday was a horrendous practice. They could not manufacture anything offensively against the Raiders. And the Patriots put a lot into those joint practices. They treat them as seriously as they do the games because they can orchestrate the situations. Really didn't have any progress at all until the final portion of practice in 1 2-minute 11-on-11. They had to hang on. They drove the field, and things were good. They had a much better practice on Wednesday. Thursday comes, and they have the game, and they're completely dysfunctional along the offensive line on their 2 drives. So it's a 3-and-out. It's a 3 and then a pick for Mac Jones on a really bad throw. And at the end of the first 3-and-out, what's a little disturbing if you're a Patriots fan, is that Mac Jones kind of walked into a sack because he got jumpy, kind of misread the leverage of the block that was in front of him, and walked into it. So later on in the game, again, after a little bit of a breakdown up front, but not a full-on jailbreak, he kind of did one of the fluty Russell Wilson backwards pivot things where he tried to spin. It's not going to work with a guy who's running a 4.6, which is still kind of fast, but not that fast. And ended up being a trash play. So I think what's alarming is the cohesiveness on the offensive line is suffering so much that I think Mac Jones is looking at it and going, I don't really trust these guys, which is causing a regression that is becoming very frustrating for him and for the other guys who have continuity on this line.
What about the run game?
They're going to have to go back to just running straight ahead. They were trying to do the Broncos/Colts stretch play where they try to get outside and zone block, and they're just not having success. That was part of the reason the other night. First time they tried it, they lost 4. Second time they tried it, they didn't gain anything and had a hold. And then after that, once they did, the straight-ahead run game, it worked fine. But the interesting thing there is their fullback, Jakob Johnson, they told Jakob in February, we're doing away with the fullback. We're not going to run that style anymore. He's now a Raider. He was on the other sideline. But clearly they can't block the stretch stuff with the season looming. Do they stick with it, in for a dime, in for a dollar, and say we're just going to bang our head against the wall, or they say, okay, real game start. We've shown no propensity for being able to do this. Let's go back to the stuff that kind of works.
Well, here's the issue, Tom, is the way that you look at it when you look at the Patriots over the years. They don't look great to start, and then they start doing their job, and it all works out in the end. On the offensive end of things, Brady would be the one that could handle it, right? Now you got a second-year pro who's got somewhat of a new offense, right? And then play callers who have never done it before. with a bunch of people that aren't, and I know that this is a silly way to say it, but I'll say it, aren't lighting up too many fantasy football drafts, right? Because of their incredible innate talent or speed or anything like that. There's not a whole bunch of them on the Patriots. That's what gives you the sense that this thing is just not fixable right now, and that it's something that can't blossom into what we saw last year. What do you think of that concept?
I think it's on point, and I think we really probably should amplify the Josh McDaniels component, because Bill really didn't have to worry about offense for a long time. I mean, he was intimately involved, and anything that the Patriots did offensively was done with, Bill's eventual imprimatur. He would stamp it and say that's fine. But generally speaking, it was going to be fine because Bill deferred to Josh McDaniels to run the offense. Losing the greatest quarterback of all time, who's a human computer, was a blow. But they still cobbled together an offense that got 12 running touchdowns and 8 passing touchdowns from Cam Newton, who really can't throw anymore, and they went 7-9. Then last year, again, with Josh McDaniels, cobbled together an offense that gets them to 9-4 at one point. They finished whatever it was, 11-6 or 12-5. Be that as it may. But the McDaniels component and the Brady component, to take two of the most gifted and fluent offensive minds on the planet right now, and I do believe that McDaniels is that. I mean, you can McVay me all you want, you can Shanahan me all you want, but none of them ever morphed offenses the way that Josh did in the course of the season. So I think that Bill underplayed how easy it would be or how hard it would be, and I think he underplayed just how good those two were.